Hello, my dear friends, and a very warm welcome back to another effective and amazing episode here at English in Fluency. This is the channel where we journey together, a place where we learn to use the beautiful English language not just to communicate, but to connect, to grow, and to build a more meaningful life, step by careful step, and word by thoughtful word. Thank you so very much for choosing to be here with me today, and thank you from the very bottom of my heart for all of your incredible love and your amazing support. Every single message I receive, every time one of you shares that you've listened to an episode, every time you pass this podcast along to a friend, it truly and genuinely means the world to me. I feel an immense sense of purpose and happiness, knowing that so many of you, from every corner of this beautiful planet, are using this space to learn, to grow your confidence, and to improve your English skills. So, from my heart to yours, thank you. My name is Alex, and I am here with you today, as always, to be your companion and your guide, to help you practice your English listening and your English speaking, while we also explore a powerful idea that can be genuinely useful for your life. In this podcast, I always try to share concepts that can help you become better in English, and also better in life. Because I am convinced that when we can grow in both our language skills and our personal mindset, we begin to move with a new kind of grace and power towards our most important goals and our most cherished dreams. Now, in today's very special episode, we are going to talk about something truly extraordinary. It is an idea that I like to think of as a secret key, or perhaps a magic lever. It is a principle that, once you understand it, can help you achieve so much more, with so much less stress. It is called the 80-20 rule. Have you ever heard of it before? Please, do not worry if that name is new to you. My promise to you in this episode is that I will explain it slowly, very clearly, and with many simple, real-life examples, so that you can understand it deeply, and, more importantly, so that you can begin to use it in your own daily life. You do not need to be a business genius or a famous scientist to use this rule. This is a principle that can help everyone. From students trying to get better grades, to workers trying to be more effective at their jobs, to parents managing a busy household, and especially, it can help English learners like you. It is a tool for anyone who wants to live a smarter, more focused, and more joyful life. So, what is this 80-20 rule? Imagine for a moment that you are trying to push a very large, heavy rock. You push with all your might. You sweat. You struggle. But the rock barely moves. This is how life can feel sometimes, like we are putting in a massive amount of effort for very small results. Now, imagine someone gives you a long, strong piece of wood, a lever. You place a small stone under the lever, near the giant rock, and now, with just a small push on the other end of the lever, you can move the giant rock with ease. The 80-20 rule is that lever. It teaches you where to apply your force, where to put your effort, to get the biggest possible result. In simple words, this rule says that in many areas of life, 80% of your results will come from only 20% of your actions. This means that only a few things we do, the vital few, are responsible for most of our success and happiness. For example, maybe you have 10 different tasks on your to-do list. But completing just 2 of them will make your boss incredibly happy and move your career forward. Or perhaps you know 20 different ways to relax, but you find that just a few of them, like walking in nature or listening to quiet music, provide you with most of your peace and calm. This idea comes from a brilliant Italian thinker named Vilfredo Pareto, and that is why the rule is also called the Pareto Principle. So why is this rule so important? Because it is the secret to focus in a world of distraction. We are all faced with so many choices, so many tasks, so many demands on our time and energy every single day. It is easy to feel tired, overwhelmed, and constantly busy, but not productive. But with this rule as our guide, we can learn to identify and concentrate only on the things that truly matter. On that critical 20% of activities that will give us 80% of the results we desire. This helps us to save time, to conserve our precious energy, and to get far better results in school, in work, and yes, even in our journey of learning English. So, in this episode, I will be your guide. We will dive deep into what the 80-20 rule really means. We will explore the fascinating story of its discovery. We will understand why it is so powerful. And I will give you simple examples, step-by-step ideas, and small, manageable actions you can take today to start using it in your own life. And please remember, while you listen, make this an active practice. Feel free to speak along with me, to repeat the words, to copy the sentences, and to use this time to practice your English out loud. Now, let's begin our journey into the 80-20 rule and learn together how this one small, smart change in our thinking can create truly massive and beautiful results in our lives. So, what exactly is this 80-20 rule? Let's take our time here and let's understand this powerful concept step by step, with great care and with perfect clarity. The 80-20 rule, at its very core, is a simple but incredibly profound observation about the way the world works. It suggests that in many, many different types of systems, there is a natural and predictable imbalance between inputs and outputs, between causes and effects, between effort and results. Specifically, it states that, in a vast number of cases, roughly 80% of the outcomes you experience will come from only about 20% of your efforts. Let's break that down even further. This means that not every action you take is equally important. Not every hour you work is equally productive. Not every friend you have contributes equally to your happiness. In fact, most of the things we do, the trivial many, actually contribute very little to the results that we truly care about. In contrast, a small select number of our activities, our vital few, are responsible for the vast majority of our success, our progress, our joy, and the most significant and positive changes in our lives. Think of it like a beautiful fruit tree in an orchard. The tree might have hundreds and hundreds of leaves, but it is only a small percentage of the branches that actually bear the most delicious fruit. The smart gardener knows which branches to care for the most. The 80-20 rule teaches us to be smart gardeners of our own lives. Let's use a very clear and relatable example to make this idea come alive for you. Imagine you are a small business owner who runs a cozy little coffee shop. Over the course of a month, you sell 10 different types of drinks. You sell regular coffee, lattes, cappuccinos, herbal teas, hot chocolate, and so on. At the end of the month, you look at your sales numbers. You might assume that all 10 drinks contribute equally to your income. But if you apply the 80-20 lens, you might discover something amazing. You might find that just 2 of your drinks, perhaps the classic latte and the cappuccino, are responsible for 80% of your total sales. Your other 8 drinks combined only bring in 20% of the money. This is the 80-20 rule in action. This knowledge is incredibly powerful. As the coffee shop owner, you now know that your vital few products are the latte and the cappuccino. You can make sure you always have the best ingredients for them. You can train your staff to make them perfectly. You can even offer a special promotion on them. By focusing on your 20%, you will strengthen 80% of your business. Let's take another simple example from daily life. Think about the mobile phone that you use every day. You probably have dozens of applications or apps installed on it. Maybe you have 30 or 40 different apps. But if you were to honestly track your usage for a week, what do you think you would find? You would likely discover that you use the same 4 or 5 apps almost all the time. Perhaps your messaging app, your email app, a social media app, and your music app. These 4 or 5 apps, maybe 20% of your total apps, probably account for 80% or more of the time you spend on your phone. The other 20 or 30 apps just sit there, taking up space. This is another perfect everyday example of the imbalance the 80-20 rule describes. It is absolutely crucial to understand that the numbers 80 and 20 are not a magical, rigid law of nature. They are a helpful guide, a mental model. The core of the principle is not about the exact numbers. It is about the concept of unequal distribution. Sometimes the pattern might be 70-30. In other cases, it might be even more extreme, like 95-5, where 5% of your efforts produce 95% of your results. The specific numbers can change, but the profound and life-altering lesson remains the same. In most things, a small number of causes are responsible for a large number of effects. Not all of our efforts are created equal. Now, let's take a brief and fascinating look at where this idea came from. As I mentioned, the 80-20 rule is also known as the Pareto Principle. It is named after a brilliant Italian economist, engineer, and sociologist named Vilfredo Pareto. Pareto was born in 1848, and he was a man of immense curiosity. Around the year 1896, he was conducting a very serious and academic study on the distribution of wealth in various European nations. While analyzing the data for Italy, he made a startling discovery. He found that approximately 80% of the land in Italy was owned by only 20% of the population. This was a dramatic imbalance. Being a good scientist, he wondered if this was just a strange coincidence unique to Italy. So, he expanded his research. He looked at the historical data for other countries, and he found the same pattern repeating itself again and again. It seemed to be a consistent social and economic phenomenon. But the story that is often told, which really brings the principle to life, is that Pareto also noticed this pattern in his own garden. He was an avid gardener, and he grew peas. He observed that a small number of his pea plants, just a vital few, were incredibly healthy and productive. These few plants were producing about 80% of all the delicious peas he harvested. The vast majority of his other pea plants were weak and produced very little. This simple observation from nature helped him to understand that this principle of imbalance was not just about economics. It was a more fundamental pattern that appeared in many different systems. For many years, this idea remained mostly within the field of economics. But in the 1940s, a visionary quality management pioneer named Dr. Joseph M. Juran stumbled upon Pareto's work. Dr. Juran was working to help businesses improve the quality of their products. He applied Pareto's principle to manufacturing and found something incredible. He discovered that in most factories, 80% of the product defects, the mistakes and problems, were caused by only 20% of the production issues. He called this the principle of the vital few and the trivial many. He taught companies that instead of trying to fix hundreds of small problems, they should identify and solve that critical 20% of issues. By doing so, they could eliminate 80% of their quality problems. It was Dr. Juran who named this phenomenon the Pareto Principle in honor of Vilfredo Pareto, and he helped to popularize the idea in the worlds of business and management. Since then, people have found this principle to be true in almost every field imaginable. In sales, 80% of sales often come from 20% of the salespeople. In traffic accidents, 80% of accidents are often caused by 20% of the drivers. In language, as we discussed, 20% of the words are used 80% of the time. This idea is a powerful mental model that helps us to see the world with more clarity. It helps us to understand that we should stop trying to do everything and instead focus on doing the right things. So, let's bring this back to our own personal lives, and specifically to our journey of learning English. If we embrace the 80-20 rule, we can begin to ask ourselves some very powerful and intelligent questions. We can ask, of all the different ways I study English, which are the vital few activities that are giving me the biggest improvements? Perhaps for you, it is shadowing a podcast like this one, where you listen and repeat at the same time. Or maybe it is writing a short paragraph in English every single day. The 80-20 rule encourages you to become a detective in your own learning process, to identify what truly works for you. And once you find your vital few, the logical and smart next step is to dedicate more of your time and your best energy to those activities. Let me say this one more time, because it is the most important takeaway. The 80-20 rule teaches us that a small number of inputs create a large majority of the outputs. Not all of our actions are equally valuable. Some actions are like a powerful lever. They can move mountains. Other actions are like pushing on that mountain with our bare hands. A lot of effort for very little result. When we learn to identify our levers, we can stop wasting our precious lives on activities that keep us busy, but do not help us to progress. We become smarter. We become more focused. We become more successful. Not by working more hours, but by working more on what truly matters. So please remember, the 80-20 rule is not about being a perfect mathematician. It is about becoming a thoughtful strategist in your own life. It is about pausing, reflecting, and asking that powerful question. Where do my best results come from? And once you begin to uncover the answers, you can start to shift your focus, your habits, and your energy. And you will begin to move forward in your life with a newfound sense of power, clarity, and purpose. In the next part of our episode, we will explore in much greater detail why this rule is so incredibly useful and how it can make your life easier, better, and more successful in so many ways. So please keep listening, and let's continue this wonderful journey together. Now that we have a very clear and solid understanding of what the 80-20 rule is, let's talk about the why. Why is this principle so incredibly useful? Why do so many of the world's most successful and effective people, from top CEOs and entrepreneurs to brilliant scientists and creative artists, use this way of thinking to guide their daily lives? The reason is that this rule is not just an interesting intellectual concept. It is a profoundly practical and powerful tool that can help us to conserve our most precious and non-renewable resources, our time, our energy, and our focus. It is a mental model that can help us to perform at a higher level in our work and studies, and it can dramatically reduce our feelings of stress, anxiety, and overwhelm. In the simplest terms, the 80-20 rule is a philosophy that helps us to stop wasting our lives on low-impact activities and to start strategically investing our best efforts into the vital few things that will truly help us to grow, to succeed, and to find deep fulfillment. One of the most fundamental and life-altering lessons we can learn from the 80-20 rule is this: most of our efforts are largely irrelevant. Now, that might sound harsh or negative at first, but it is actually one of the most liberating ideas you can ever embrace. We live in a culture that often teaches us the opposite. We are told that we must work harder, that we must do more, that a longer to-do list is a sign of importance. We often operate under the false assumption that all of our actions and all of our hours are equally valuable. We think that if we just work more hours, we will automatically achieve more success. We believe that if we just say yes to every opportunity, we will eventually find the right one. But the 80-20 rule shows us that this is a deeply flawed way of thinking. It teaches us that in reality, most of what we do, perhaps 80% of it, contributes very little to our desired outcomes, and it is only a small, select 20% of our actions that are truly creating the results we want. The rule is useful because it gives us permission to stop doing everything. It gives us permission to be selective, to be strategic, and to focus only on what truly matters. Let's look at some very practical, real-life examples to see how this usefulness plays out. Imagine a young software developer named Leo. Leo is very hardworking. He arrives at the office early and stays late. His to-do list is always full. He spends his day responding to hundreds of emails, attending various meetings, fixing small, minor bugs in the code, and updating documentation. At the end of the day, he is exhausted. He feels incredibly busy. But he also feels frustrated because the main important project he is working on is not moving forward. Now, let's say Leo learns about the 80-20 rule. He pauses and analyzes his work. He realizes that 80% of the value he creates for his company comes from just one activity: writing new, innovative code for his main project. This is his vital 20%. The hundreds of emails, the long meetings, and the minor bug fixes are the trivial many. They keep him busy, but they don't create significant value. With this new clarity, Leo changes his strategy. He decides to dedicate the first 2 hours of every morning when his mind is freshest. exclusively to writing code for his main project. He turns off his email notifications during this time. He politely declines meetings that are not essential. By focusing his best energy on his most important task, he starts making incredible progress. He feels less stressed, more productive, and more fulfilled. The 80-20 rule did not make him work less. It made him work smarter. It helped him to focus his effort where it would have the most impact. This principle is also incredibly useful for reducing stress and mental overwhelm. Think about that feeling of having too much to do and not enough time. It is a terrible, stressful feeling that many of us experience every day. This feeling comes from the belief that we have to do everything, that every task is equally urgent and important. The 80-20 rule is the perfect antidote to this feeling. It acts as a filter. It helps you to look at your long list of tasks and to identify the few that truly matter. When you know that only 20% of your tasks will deliver 80% of the results, it becomes much easier to let go of the rest, or to postpone them, or to delegate them. It liberates you from the tyranny of the to-do list. It gives you permission to say no to things that are not aligned with your most important goals. This act of simplification and focus is one of the most powerful stress reduction techniques there is. Let's consider another example. A university student named Chloe. Chloe is studying for her final exams. She has 4 different subjects, and she feels completely overwhelmed. She is trying to read every chapter of every textbook, to review every note from every lecture, and to do every practice problem. She is studying 12 hours a day, but she feels like she is not retaining the information. She feels stressed and anxious. Then, she applies the 80-20 rule. She takes a step back and analyzes her situation. She looks at past exam papers and talks to her professor. She realizes that in her most important subject, 80% of the exam questions usually come from 20% of the key topics. She also realizes that for her learning style, active recall, testing herself with flashcards, is much more effective than passively rereading the textbook. So, she changes her approach. She decides to focus 80% of her study time on the most important topics, and to use her most effective study method. She still reviews the other topics, but she doesn't spend as much time on them. As a result, her stress levels go down, her understanding of the key concepts goes up, and she performs much better on her exams. Even though she might be studying fewer hours, she stopped being busy and started being effective. This brings us to another reason why the rule is so useful. It helps us to understand the critical difference between being efficient and being effective. Efficiency means doing things in the fastest way possible. For example, answering emails very quickly is efficient. But effectiveness means doing the right things. The 80-20 rule is a tool for effectiveness. It is much better to work slowly on the right task than it is to work very quickly on the wrong task. Answering 100 unimportant emails in an hour is very efficient. But it is not effective if your most important task for the day was to write a business proposal. The 80-20 rule constantly reminds us to ask, is this the most effective use of my time right now? This question helps us to stay focused on what truly moves us toward our goals. Finally, the 80-20 rule is useful because it can give you back your time and your freedom. When you stop wasting 80% of your time on low-value activities, you suddenly have a huge surplus of time and energy. What can you do with that newfound time? You can invest it in the things that make life rich and beautiful. You can spend more quality time with your family and friends. You can pursue a hobby you are passionate about. You can exercise and take care of your health. You can travel and have new experiences. You can simply rest and do nothing at all, which is also incredibly important. The 80-20 rule is not just about being more productive at work. It is about creating a life that is more balanced, more joyful, and more free. It is about doing the important things well, so that you have more time to simply live. So, as you can see, this simple principle is incredibly useful. It provides clarity in a world of confusion. It reduces stress in a world of overwhelm. It promotes effectiveness over mere busyness. And it can give you back the time and freedom to live a more fulfilling life. It is a powerful lens through which to view every aspect of your life: your work, your health, your relationships, and your personal growth. Now that we truly understand why this rule is so valuable, let's move on to the most exciting part: learning exactly how you can begin to apply this principle in your own daily life. So please stay with me. And let's continue this journey of discovery together. So, now we arrive at the most practical, the most actionable, and arguably the most exciting part of our entire conversation today. We have a deep and clear understanding of what the 80-20 rule is, and we know why it is such a profoundly useful tool for a better life. Now, let's talk about how yes, you, can begin to apply this principle in your own daily life. This is where the idea moves from being an interesting concept in your mind to becoming a real, tangible tool in your hand. This is where you can start to make small changes that will lead to big, positive results. And I want to assure you once more, you do not need to be a productivity guru or a business expert to do this. Anyone can use this rule: students, office workers, parents, artists, and of course, dedicated English learners like you. Let's explore, in detail, how you can apply the 80-20 rule in several key areas of your life. Let's begin with the area where many of us feel the most pressure: our work or our studies. Most of us have been conditioned to believe that being busy is a sign of being important or hardworking. We fill our days with tasks, meetings, and emails, often without stopping to think if these activities are truly productive. The 80-20 rule invites us to challenge this assumption. It invites us to become more of a strategist than just a worker. Here is a simple process you can follow. At the beginning of your week, perhaps on a Monday morning, take just 15 minutes. Find a quiet space with a piece of paper or a notebook. First, write down your most important goal for the week. What is the one thing that, if you accomplish it, will make this a successful week? Maybe it is finishing a major report, or preparing for a key presentation, or mastering a difficult chapter for an exam. Now, underneath that goal, write down all the tasks and activities that are on your to-do list for the week. Just list everything you can think of. Your list might have 15 or 20 items. Now comes the 80-20 analysis. Look at your list of tasks and circle the 1, 2, or maybe 3 tasks that will contribute directly to achieving your most important goal for the week. These are your vital few, your 20%. The other tasks are your trivial many. They might be necessary, but they are not as important. Your mission for the week is to protect your time and energy to ensure that your vital few tasks get done. This means scheduling them into your calendar first, perhaps during your most productive morning hours. It means learning to say no to non-essential requests that distract you from your main goal. This simple 15-minute exercise can completely change the way you approach your work. You will move from being reactive and busy to being proactive and effective. Let's imagine a fictional character, Mr. Henderson, a retired man who wants to write a book about his life experiences. He has a lot of time, but he feels unproductive. He spends his days organizing old photos, researching unimportant details online, and talking about writing his book. He is busy, but the book is not getting written. Then he applies the 80-20 rule. He realizes that 80% of his progress will come from just one activity: sitting down and writing for 1 hour every single day. This is his vital 20%. The research and organizing are part of the process, but the writing itself is the high-leverage action. He commits to writing for 1 hour every morning before he does anything else. And suddenly, the book starts to take shape. He is no longer just busy, he is effective. Now, let's talk about the area that is so important to all of us here: how to use the 80-20 rule in your journey of learning English. This is an area where the rule can have a massive impact. Many English learners feel overwhelmed by the sheer volume of things they think they need to learn. Thousands of words, complex grammar rules, endless lists of idioms. But a smart learner uses the 80-20 rule to focus their efforts. Let's break it down. First, vocabulary. Instead of trying to memorize random lists of difficult words from a dictionary, a smart learner focuses on the most frequently used words in the language. There are many resources online that list the top 1,000 or 2,000 most common English words. These words are the vital 20% that will allow you to understand and participate in 80% of everyday conversations. Focus on learning these core words deeply. Learn their different forms, their collocations, and how to use them in your own sentences. Second, grammar. English grammar can seem incredibly complex, but again, the 80-20 rule applies. A small number of grammar structures are used most of the time. Focus on mastering the core tenses, the simple present, past, and future, and how to form questions and negative sentences. Understand prepositions of time and place. These are the foundations. Worry about the more obscure and complex grammar rules later. By mastering the vital 20% of grammar, you will be able to communicate clearly and effectively in most situations. Third, and perhaps most importantly, practice activities. This is where you need to be a detective in your own learning. Ask yourself, what type of practice gives me the most confidence and the most improvement? For many people, active practice is far more effective than passive study. This means that 20 minutes of active speaking with a language partner might be more valuable than 2 hours of passively reading a textbook, or 20 minutes of active listening to a podcast where you really try to understand every word might be more effective than watching a movie with subtitles in your own language. Find your personal 20%. Maybe for you, it is writing a daily journal. Maybe it is shadowing, repeating what you hear in a podcast. Experiment and find what works best for you, and then dedicate more of your time and energy to that activity. Now, let's talk about your personal life. Yes, the 80-20 rule is a powerful tool for happiness and well-being too. Think about your relationships. Who are the 20% of people in your life who give you 80% of your joy, support, and positive energy? These are your true friends, your supportive family members. The rule gently suggests that you should be intentional about investing your time and love into these vital relationships. This does not mean you should be unkind to others, but it does mean you should protect your energy from relationships that are consistently draining, negative, or toxic. Think about your health and fitness. You do not need to spend 2 hours in the gym every day to be healthy. The 80-20 rule suggests that a few key habits, your vital 20%, will give you most of your results. This might be 30 minutes of consistent exercise a few times a week, drinking enough water, and getting enough sleep. These 3 habits alone will likely provide 80% of your overall health benefits. The same applies to your diet. Instead of trying a new, complicated diet every month, perhaps the most effective action is to focus on one simple rule, like adding more vegetables to every meal. This one small change can have a massive impact. And finally, think about your happiness. What are the 20% of activities that bring you 80% of your joy? Make a list. Is it walking in nature, reading a good book, playing with your pet, listening to music, having a deep conversation with a loved one? These are your high-joy activities. The 80-20 rule encourages you to treat these activities as important appointments. Schedule them into your week. Protect that time. Do not let them be the first thing you sacrifice when you get busy. These activities are not a luxury. They are essential for a life that is truly lived. So, the key message here is to become a thoughtful strategist of your own life. Look at each area: your work, your learning, your health, your relationships. In each area, try to identify the vital few inputs that are producing the majority of your desired outputs. Then, make a conscious, intentional choice to focus more of your precious time and energy on those things. It is not about doing more. It is about doing more of what matters. And when you begin to live by this principle, you will find that your life becomes simpler, less stressful, more productive, and profoundly more joyful. Now that we have learned the simple steps to apply the 80-20 rule in our lives, it is also incredibly important that we understand that many people make common mistakes when they first try to use this powerful principle. This is completely normal. Mistakes are a natural and unavoidable part of learning anything new. However, if we can talk about these common mistakes now, you can become more aware of them. This awareness will help you to avoid these pitfalls and to use the 80-20 rule in a much wiser, more balanced, and more effective way from the very beginning. Let's look at 3 of the most common mistakes that people make when they try to apply this rule. The first, and by far the biggest mistake, is to misinterpret the 80-20 rule as an excuse to do less work and to simply be lazy. This is a complete and fundamental misunderstanding of the principle. Some people hear about this rule, and their initial reaction is, "Oh, this is fantastic. I only need to do 20% of the work to get 80% of the results. This means I can just stop doing most things, put my feet up, and relax." But this is not at all the true spirit or the intended message of the rule. The 80-20 rule is not about avoiding work. It is about doing the right work. It is about being more strategic, more focused, and more intelligent in our efforts. The truth is, achieving anything great in life still requires effort, dedication, and sometimes very hard work. But the genius of this rule is that it teaches us where to direct our effort for maximum impact. If you use your most precious time and your best energy on the most critical, high-leverage tasks, you will achieve far greater results than someone who just works long, unfocused, and exhausting hours without any strategic thought. So please, I encourage you, do not view the 80-20 rule as a justification for laziness. See it for what it is: a powerful tool that helps you to focus smarter, not to work less without reason. It is about maximizing your effectiveness, not simply minimizing your effort. The second common mistake is becoming too obsessed with the numbers and trying to be perfectly mathematical. Many people get stuck on the specific numbers 80 and 20. They believe that the rule must apply in this exact ratio to every single situation in their lives. They spend a lot of time and mental energy trying to calculate with precision if 20% of their actions are giving them exactly 80% of their results. But life is not a neat and tidy mathematics problem. As we discussed earlier, sometimes the real-world ratio is 70-30. Sometimes it is 90-10. And sometimes it might be even more extreme, like 99/1. The specific numbers are not the important part. They are just a memorable and useful shorthand to help us understand a general principle. The real lesson, the core idea that can change your life, is this: there is a natural imbalance in the world. A small number of causes, a vital few, are often responsible for most of the effects, the big results. You do not need to carry a calculator or create complex spreadsheets to track every minute of your day. That would be a waste of your time and would miss the entire point. The goal is to develop a new way of seeing the world, a new mindset. It is about learning to pause, to reflect, and to notice the general pattern of what works best for you. What gives you the most progress? What brings you the most peace? What leads to your greatest successes? And then, you simply choose to do more of that. So please, do not waste your precious energy trying to be perfect with the numbers. Focus on understanding the powerful underlying principle of imbalance, not on the exact percentages. The third mistake that people often make is to take the rule to an extreme and to completely ignore the other 80% of activities. Yes, the 80-20 rule teaches us to focus our primary attention, our best energy, on the most important 20% of tasks. But this does not mean that the other 80% of things have zero value or can be completely and utterly abandoned. For example, let's think about your work life again. Tasks like replying to important emails from your team, keeping your digital files organized, or attending a weekly team meeting might not be part of your high-impact 20% that gets you a promotion. However, they are often necessary maintenance tasks that keep things running smoothly and allow you to be a good colleague. If you ignored all of these things, you would quickly run into problems. In your personal life, activities like cleaning your home, washing your clothes, cooking meals, or paying your bills might not directly contribute to your biggest life goals, but they are essential parts of a functioning and healthy adult life. The 80-20 rule is not telling you to stop cleaning your house or to stop paying your bills. It is telling you to be strategic. Perhaps you can find a more efficient way to do these necessary tasks, like cleaning for 15 minutes every day instead of for 3 hours on a Saturday, so that you can free up more time for your vital few activities. The rule is about achieving a smarter balance, not about completely eliminating everything else. You focus more of your best energy on your top 20%, but you still manage the rest of your responsibilities efficiently and responsibly. The key is to use the 80-20 rule as a wise and flexible guide, not as a rigid, unbreakable law. Use it to become more focused, more thoughtful, and more effective. Not to become lazy, careless, or unbalanced in your life. When you keep these common mistakes in mind, you can apply this powerful principle in a way that truly and sustainably enhances every area of your life. As we come towards the end of this deep and comprehensive exploration, I want to take a few moments to review and recap the most important ideas we have discussed in this episode. It is always a valuable practice to go over the key concepts one last time. When we hear something multiple times, explained in different ways, it helps that knowledge to move from our short-term memory into our long-term understanding. The 80-20 rule, which we now know is also called the Pareto Principle, is a simple but truly life-changing idea that can serve as a powerful compass to help you make better, wiser choices in every aspect of your life. It teaches us the beautiful truth that a small amount of focused, intelligent effort can produce massive and meaningful results, if we have the wisdom to choose the right actions. We began our conversation today by understanding the core concept of the rule. We learned that in a vast number of situations in our world, approximately 80% of our results, our successes, our achievements, and our happiness come from only about 20% of our efforts, our actions, and our time. This means that not everything we do is equally important. In fact, most of what we do contributes very little to the outcomes that we truly desire. A few vital things matter profoundly more than all the others. And if we can learn to identify those few vital actions and give them our primary, focused attention, we can save an incredible amount of our precious time. We can dramatically reduce our feelings of stress and overwhelm. And we can achieve our most important goals much, much faster. The powerful lesson is not that you have to do everything. It is that you only need to do what matters most. Then, we looked at how this powerful principle shows up all around us in the real world. We explored examples from many different areas of life, from our work and our studies to our health and our relationships. We saw that in our journey of learning English, a few key activities like daily speaking and active listening practice might be far more effective and produce much greater results than hours and hours spent only on passive grammar study. We saw that in our professional lives, one or two high-impact tasks, like solving a major customer's problem or completing a critical project deliverable, often bring most of our success, while many other smaller tasks just keep us feeling busy. By learning to pause and look at our lives through the clarifying lens of the 80-20 rule, by consistently asking ourselves, what are the vital few actions that are giving me the most value? We can begin to direct our precious time and our limited energy much more wisely and strategically. We also talked about the practical, step-by-step process of how to apply the 80-20 rule in your own life. We learned that the key is to first pause and reflect, to observe our days and our weeks with curiosity and without judgment, and to ask ourselves honestly, what actions led to my best results? What activities can I reduce or stop doing altogether? And where should I be intentionally investing more of my time and my focus? We understood that this process does not need to be perfect. You do not have to become obsessed with calculating the exact numbers. You just need to learn to notice the general patterns in your own life. What helps you to grow? What moves you forward? What brings you joy? And then, simply do more of that. But we did not stop there. We also took the time to discuss the common mistakes that people make when they try to use this rule. Some people mistakenly believe that the 80-20 rule is an excuse to become lazy. But we learned that this is not true at all. It is about working smarter, not less. Others try to be too perfect with the numbers 80 and 20. But we learned that the principle is the important thing, not the exact percentages. And finally, some people make the mistake of completely ignoring the other 80% of tasks. But we learned that many of these smaller things, like kindness, rest, or necessary daily responsibilities, are also very important for a balanced, healthy, and happy life. So, here is the main message of our entire episode, summarized one last time. Small, smart, focused effort can equal big, meaningful, and wonderful results. When you learn to focus on the vital few actions that truly matter, you liberate yourself from the stressful and impossible expectation that you need to do everything. You do what works, and you find that it is more than enough. Let's think of our two friends one last time. The two students who want to improve their English. One student tries to study everything, every grammar rule, every vocabulary list, every long reading passage, but he never practices speaking. The other student, using the 80-20 rule, chooses to speak a little bit every single day, to listen to English podcasts, and to use simple, common words to talk to other people. After a month, even if she studied fewer total hours, the second student feels far more confident and fluent. Why? Because she did not focus on doing more. She focused on doing what works. And that is the true magic and the real power of the 80-20 rule. It reminds us that we do not need to do it all. We just need to do what matters most. Whether you are learning English, building a business, or simply trying to create a better life, you can always ask yourself that powerful, clarifying question. What is the 20% of my effort that will give me 80% of my desired progress? Start there, and you will go farther and faster than you ever thought possible. As we come to the very end of our episode together, I want to leave you with a gentle reminder and a small, simple challenge. I truly hope that our deep conversation today has helped you to see how powerful and practical the 80-20 rule can be in your own life. This rule is not just about work or business or productivity. It is a philosophy for living. It is about living with more awareness, with more intention, and using your most precious resource, your energy, in the best possible way. I invite you to take a moment right now, in the quiet of your own mind, to think about your daily life. What do you do each day that brings you the most value, the most happiness, or the most growth? Maybe it is that short morning routine that helps you to feel centered and prepared for the day ahead. Maybe it is the 15 minutes of focused English practice that you know is steadily improving your speaking skills. Or maybe it is something as simple and as beautiful as spending quality, undistracted time with your family, taking a walk in the fresh air, or reading a good book. Ask yourself that powerful question: what small things in my life are giving me my biggest and most positive results? You do not need to make a huge, overwhelming change all at once, but you can start small. Here is my gentle challenge to you. Think about just one habit in your life that you can begin to improve by applying the 80-20 rule. Maybe it is how you approach your studies. Instead of trying to do a little bit of everything, perhaps you can make a commitment to focus more of your time on the one or two activities, like speaking and listening, that you know will help you the most. Or maybe it is how you approach your work. Instead of starting your day by getting lost in dozens of small, unimportant emails, perhaps you can commit to spending the first hour of your day on your single most important and valuable task. Just one small shift in your focus, one small change in your routine, can make a massive and positive difference over time. And if you ever feel overwhelmed, if you ever feel pulled in too many directions, just pause, take a deep breath, and ask yourself that clarifying question. Is what I am doing right now part of the vital 20% that truly matters? That simple question can be your compass, always guiding you back to a better, more effective, and more peaceful choice. Thank you so very, very much for spending your time with me today. I know that your time is valuable, and I truly and deeply appreciate that you chose to listen and learn with me. Your time and your energy are your most precious assets, and I sincerely hope that this episode has given you something useful in return, something that will help you to grow and to thrive. If you found this conversation helpful, I warmly invite you to come back for our next episode. We will continue to learn and grow together, step by step, at a pace that feels good and supportive for you. Please remember, this podcast is not just for passive listening. It is designed to be an active practice for your English skills. So I encourage you to speak aloud with me, to repeat the key phrases, and not to be afraid to use your voice. That is how real, confident learning truly happens. If you enjoyed today's episode, I would be so grateful if you would consider sharing it with a friend who is also on a journey of learning English or working on their personal goals. And if you have not already, please subscribe to the podcast so that you never miss a new episode. You can also leave a comment or a review on your podcast platform. It helps more people to find our community and to join us on this wonderful learning journey. Let's keep practicing, let's keep growing, and let's keep making smart, intentional choices together. The 80-20 rule is here to remind all of us of a beautiful and liberating truth. We do not need to do more. We just need to do more of what matters. Until next time, stay curious, stay kind to yourself, and stay consistent in your efforts. You are doing a wonderful job, and I am proud of you for being here today.